Now, for the purposes of the 6-point method, we're thinking here about a moment of climax or of increased heightened intensity. And usually we're thinking about this generically, and this won't always be the case, but of something positive. Usually poem will tell you a story of change. And here we have that moment of change from the bliss of the imagination into the dull awareness of reality. So for the purpose of the climax, we're looking at the most intensely positive part of this poem, which I think is the second narrative moment that we've identified, the scenery of the island being described in his mind. And this is what he can see. So we're looking now for details in the figurative language, the imagery, the sound, the rhythm, the structure that will give us a sense of where that intensity comes from. So the first line, the steady breaking and wombing. Now we have, again, a combination of unusual lexis, word choice, and rhythm here. So we've got the word steady. I think literally what's being described here is the breaking and crashing of waves. But the word steady gives us, I think, the connotation of it being reliable or dependable. So this memory itself is something that he can rely upon or depend upon. And then we have the words breaking and wombing, which seem to be slightly at odds with one another. You know, breaking has this connotation of violence, and then wombing obviously gives us the sense of something developing, growing, but most definitely connected to the idea of birth. You know, if something is in the womb, it is being gestated, it is growing in the womb. So the idea of birth is being suggested by this lexis, and I think suggests the speaker's return to origins. He's returning to the place of his birth and his hometown. So you have the steady breaking and wombing. And what you'll notice here is a shift in the rhythmic stress from the most conventionally used poetic meter, which is made up of iambs, which are unstressed syllables, followed by stressed syllables. But that's the opposite in these lines. The breaking and wombing, the first syllable, this one here, is the one that's stressed. And so we've got here an emphasis on the first syllables that I think give us a sense of the powerful movement of the waves, the jarring effect of the sea from these stressed syllables that are different from what you would usually find in, say, Shakespearean iambic pentameter, the steady breaking and wombing. That rhythm there, I think, gives you this sort of sense of jolt and surprise that I think, again, relates to the overall meaning of him waking up and finding himself somewhere he doesn't understand. There are also then wild seabirds. That's the beginning, the first image, but I think they function here as a symbol in this particular poem. I think they are symbolic of purity and freedom, but also actually freedom from what we call, civilization, of modernity, of development, of jobs, of cities, of towns. These are wild seabirds. They are untamed. They can't be controlled. And then from that symbol, we have fishermen pushing out to sea. And so we have this, again, this interesting image of fishermen going out to sea in the boats, who again are powerful and defiant like his memory. But pushing out to sea, they are returning somewhere with effort, almost like his memory. They are being defiant like his memory. They are pushing out to sea with effort, just like his memory is. Now, the word pushing here is interesting because I think it connects to breaking and wombing, and this, again, this lexis of birth. It is as if he is being born through the memory of the past, and this is a kind of reverse rebirth. It's being returned to the state of birth rather than being reborn as something differently. So pushing and breaking and wombing and surfacing defiantly, all of these phrases, I think, connect to this lexis of birth, which obviously connects to the theme of origins. Again, the sun is surfacing defiantly, so we have that sibilant alliteration again being used here to show us the intensity and power of the searing heat. The searing heat of the sun and its intensity and power is what I think this would bring to mind for me most powerfully. And it's surfacing defiantly, so we notice that again the sun is personified. The sun is personified. He uses personification here to suggest that the sun is going to turn up and break without any control. Without any control, which is a lot like, again, his memory. It's defiant, it's going to push, it's going to resurface in his mind with a lot of effort from itself, but without any control from the person going through the experience. And that sun surfaces defiantly, just like his stubborn memory of the past. And it surfaces from the east of his small emerald island. And then we have that really memorable imagery, which is actually a metaphor of the island as a precious jewel stone. It's emerald green, which builds this kind of powerful colour palette that we see from the blue sea. But here, the Emerald Island shows us this intense sense of value that he has invested in the island and the memory and his birthplace. So this is where we have the most powerful, positive, energetic part of the poem. And then we've finished with this phrase in this section, he always comes back. And it is deliberately ambiguous and vague. So this deliberately creates ambiguity, which is an element of this figurative language here, because we don't know where he means. Does he mean he always comes back to the past and his birthplace? Or he always comes back to reality and the present, which is what follows this line. So this line segues us into this isolated section in the poem where we're unsure about if he is talking about if he's coming back to his past or if he is returning from the past into the present. And so, importantly, that sense of uncertainty is ultimately what this poem is about, that state of being in transition between two locations, of belonging and being not fully in either one of those two places.